Mae Krier, an original Rosie the Riveter, was born in 1926 in North Dakota. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Mae, her sister, and a friend headed to Seattle, Washington, where Mae became a riveter for Boeing, making B-17s and B-29s for 92 cents an hour. She met Norm, her late husband, a sailor, on the dance floor in 1944. Norm was transferred to Pasco, Washington, and in April 1945 they married. She left Boeing to work for the Army engineers with Italian prisoners of war in Pasco at 83 cents an hour. Eventually they settled in Pennsylvania, where they raised their 2 children and where Mae still resides today. Mae joined other Rosies to get the first National Rosie the Riveter Day in 2017 and the Congressional Gold Medal for Rosie in 2020. During the pandemic, through her Facebook page, Honor Rosie, Mae, with the help of companies, groups, and individuals, made and mailed well over 6,000 red and white polka dot face masks. 5,000 went directly to her Honor Rosie followers. In 2022, her face mask and bandana were worn by Rosie the Rocketeer in the commander's seat of the Boeing Starliner, which traveled to the International Space Station and back. Mae continues to travel the world to promote Rosie the Riveter's legacy, and at 98 years, Mae still cuts her own grass. Now it's time to join Breaking Barriers with Mae Krier. Hello, Mae. I still haven't gotten over the masks every time I hear that intro.
Well, it scares you because I'm going to get you into that again.
Oh, no, I'm going to be smarter this time. So, we want to talk a little bit. Welcome to the show. We would like to, Brandy, come on and join us. Brandy is our behind the scenes person. And Brandy came to Mae a year ago and asked if Mae wanted to do a podcast. And it's because of Brandy that we get to do this once a month. So we thank you very much, Brandy.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Brandy. Was such a nice thing.
So, Brandy, tell us how. Do you know how many venues you're streaming on now?
We are streaming on 8 destinations right now.
Okay.
We are on Vet Radio Syndicate, Rev Nation. We are on Instagram. We are on the Honor Rosie YouTube. We are all over.
All right. And from what I remember, we've hit over 4,000 viewers on some, haven't we?
Absolutely. And growing every time.
Growing every time. So, Mae, question for you. As we're wrapping up 2024, give me 2 of your highlights for 2024 that you've experienced.
Oh, I can't even begin to tell you how many. I've had so many people here doing documentaries or book writings. I have Tues that's been here doing book writings. I've had a drone fly over my truck as I'm traveling around my neighborhood.
Right.
I've driven a tank for some young lady down in Texas by the name of Brandy. There's so many outstanding events. But of course, Deb, you're every part of this. You and Brandy are great. I couldn't do this without the 2 of you. And I thank you for that.
Well, the biggest is the gold medal, right? That was the hugest thing that happened this year.
It was so outstanding because, when you stop to think I'm up there representing 6 million, I think it's 6 million American women. Isn't that fantastic that I got to accept that medal for all those women? Of course, I'm sure that I worked the hardest for it. I mean, because I heard the one lady from Michigan saying, now, who would ever imagine this could happen? It didn't happen overnight or it didn't happen by accident. You both know what it takes to do something like that.
So as we move into 2025, Mae and I are working on what our podcasts are going to be. And one of ours will be, and we're very excited about it, a friend of May's, Sharon George, who has a relative. It was her grandmother or great grandmother, I'm not sure which, was a survivor of on the Titanic. So that's going to be exciting. We hope to do that in January. And then we hope to do the Buffalo Soldiers is another one we hope to do. And May just has so many connections that we will continue to teach people. We're going to learn things that we never learned in school. And that's part of the reason for our podcast. Right, May?
And it opens our eyes to realize how many genuine people out there who are willing to give it their time. I like to feel like George and Dave. They both work so hard for different charities, not just one, but for many. And then when you realize that and see that, you realize how important it is for to be able to connect with people like that. Well, like you, Brandy, had you not brought us on, we wouldn't be doing podcasts. So these are the kind of things that are so valuable to us, and we thank you for it.
So there's a few things that we're going to be doing this year, and we'll talk more about how to do them at the end of this podcast. But May wants to assist Raya Kenney in getting sponsors for the bill for the location of the World War II memorial to honor all the women who worked on the home front, and also to raise funds. So just a little reminder, if you or your company is looking for a tax deduction before the end of the year to a nonprofit, you can see scrolling across is www.iiwomenmemorial.org, or just Google Women on the Home Front Memorial, and you can make a tax deduction, a donation there. And today we wanted to bring Raya on to talk a little bit and give us a status of her memorial. So thanks, Brandy. And can you bring on Raya for us?
Of course. Happy holidays, ladies.
You too. And welcome, Raya.
Thank you. Hi, May. Hi, Deb. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
I see your girls with your shirts on. We can do it. I wish I'd wore mine.
Yeah.
Did I send you one, Rhea? A shirt like that with the rhinestones?
Oh no, I think that might
got
be on
bling,
my
girl. We got bling.
I think about putting mine on tonight, but I still have a few left. I think a couple at least, donated to your organization because they were given to me, a couple dozen by a young lady from Illinois. And we used any way we want, so I've been using them for your benefit. So I still have a few left. I'll have to promote them too.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. You're so nice.
You're beautiful.
So Ryan, tell us the history for those who don't know about this. The history of the memorial. When did you decide to do this? And what women will this honor, and how complex has this been for you?
Oh, where to start? This project, building a memorial to the Rosie the Riveters of World War II, to women like Mae Krier, to Mae Krier herself. It began as a 5th grade school project. I was 10 years old, and my social studies teacher gave me a school assignment where I had to build a model monument to someone or something that hasn't been recognized yet in Washington, D.C. And around the time, I had just watched the movie A League of Their Own with the women baseball players of World War II, and I was so inspired by the women running around the bases, getting bruises all over, that I really started researching, what else were women doing for the first time in the 1940s. And that's where I stumbled across this massive amount of women, over 18 million civilian women, who really stepped up on the home front and took over jobs that prior to the war they weren't even allowed to have, and essentially kept our country running. And so I ended up building that model to these amazing women, showed it to my teacher, who then said, you should try to make this a real thing. And so that's what I've been doing for 12 years since then. And along the way, I did get to meet Mae Krier and become very good friends with you, which has been one of the greatest gifts.
You know, Ray, when I met Ray, it was so cute. She was in the 5th grade and she wrote to me. And I thought, 5th grade, well, that'll last maybe a week or 2 weeks and she'll forget it. Look what happened. She didn't forget it. Look what she's done with it. I'm so proud of you. Like I say, Ray, you're a shining young star now. We're so proud of you.
Well, thank you. You help a lot all of the time. To Deb's question about how complex this is, it's so insanely complex. You really are a lot of the time the light at the end of the tunnel of when I don't know what I'm doing or something's really stressful. I have you to lean on because you've been through
Well,
this hard
don't
work.
forget
You've
when
done the hard
when I
work.
started. Ray, don't forget when I started that I didn't know what I was doing either. I even had to learn a lot about our country, how it operated. I was just telling the man that was working here today, who was here. I said, you know, we didn't even understand the government when we were kids. We studied civics, but it didn't get into detail. I didn't know how the Senate and the House operated. You can't believe what I learned through all of this. And you've got a much harder job than I had. You've got to raise all that money. I mean, and that's going to be a fantastic job. Deb and I didn't have to get into that, thank God, which was enough with just what we did.
So Raya, Brandy, can you put up the second picture, please? Can you tell our audience about the legislation you already had passed for the monument and why you're doing a new bill?
Yes,
This is
absolutely.
this is what the memorial will look like.
Ideally, this is my one of close to the original the 5th grade design that I came up with. It's going to be up to the government to really decide on the final version, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to keep the V for victory because that's my favorite attribute. But yes, for the legislation, the first piece of legislation passed in 2022 after years of lobbying it, and it essentially will allow my foundation, the World War II Women's Memorial Foundation, to build in Washington, D.C. on federal land. And since that legislation passed, we're now working in a 7-year time frame to decide where the memorial should go and what it should look like. And I've come to the realization that there is actually a severe lack of women's representation in Washington, D.C. I live here, and so I get to walk around the mall at my leisure, and I just know that every time I'm sorely disappointed by how few women are represented. And I think the Rosies are such a powerful group of women. They deserve to be in a space of prominence. And so I'm currently working on a second set of legislation that will be focused on getting us that location. So it'll be either on the mall or near the existing World War II memorial or within walking distance to it. So we can really complete the story of World War II.
Tell us how much.
Ray, who controls where you're going to put, well, what land or where you can place your monument? Who controls that?
The government. It'll go through a series of committees that all can put in reasons as to why it should go one place or another. But one of the main entities is the National Park Service, and they always look for spaces that have what they call a nexus, so something that has historical significance. So one of the locations that I love, which has a really strong significance, for example, is Constitution Gardens on the National Mall, because during the 1940s, there were actually munitions buildings there where women actually worked in, which is a really direct connection. So they look for connections like that, and then they'll review it and decide ultimately which one is the strongest for them.
Will you have any say into where it's placed or where you're finding out?
I hope that I can provide some really strong argumentation and that they'll be swayed by that, but ultimately, no. That's their discretion.
And how do you know, when will you be able to find out when this is possible?
Once the second legislation is through the House and the Senate and into law, then we can have that land picked, and then I'll go in front of committee and argue for the location that I think is best, and then we'll get into a conversation, so to speak, as to where. But that could last, the timeline, I'm sure, I don't really know what it'll look like, but hopefully quick. I want it to be done soon.
Can you tell us how much funding you must raise and how much time do you have to do that?
Oh, another good question. So the funding is really going to depend on where the memorial goes and what it's going to end up looking like. We have a ballpark estimate around $14 million, which is a pretty steep price tag, given that my foundation has to raise that on our own. No government funds are allowed to be used. But I'm really optimistic that we'll be able to get it done again in that 5-year window that I mentioned earlier, with the legislation that passed in 2022. Just trying to get it done quickly so Mae can come and see it, and all of the other
Absolutely.
ones can come and see
Absolutely. You better hurry up.
it.
Are you are you reaching out to companies to partner with you? What is a good way for people to contact you directly?
Absolutely. So if you're interested in finding more about the project, you can contact us at info@whfnmf.org. Send me an email. You can visit the website that's scrolling at the bottom of the screen. We are seeking donations from anywhere, anyone, but we really want to keep this central to women. So we're looking at the companies that originally employed women during the war. I do have a partnership with Boeing, which was Mae Krier's employer for a while, looking into other groups like that. I think a corporate sponsor would be amazing. If there are any women CEOs who are listening who would want to pitch in, I'm always happy to have a conversation. This is really ultimately a project that everyone can get behind. So many people I know have a Rosie in their family or know a Rosie that they're close with. So it's just kind of a trick of getting to know your own family history and how you can really get involved.
Well, thanks.
Raya, I'm getting back to your funding. Is it my understanding that after you do get the spot and get it organized, you have to maintain it for 7 years? Is that? And now that's quite a cost too, right?
Yeah, I believe, I can't remember the exact percentage off the top of my head. I think they ask that you raise whatever amount you need plus 11%, so the National Park Service can, maintain it for the rest of time, essentially. I don't know what that cost will be, but I think it'll be doable. I am optimistic.
Yes, you are.
Huh?
You are.
You really are.
So this is a great time to bring in a very good friend of Mae's. His name is Dave Winters from the Black Dagger Military Hunt Club in Florida. Hi, Dave.
Hey, I know you guys are all up north. It's nice and warm. I have shorts on. It was 80 degrees today, so
You don't need to rub
don't
that in.
say that. There's a heater on behind me.
and Raya, you need $1,540,000 to maintain it for those years.
Excellent.
Okay.
Easy.
Just a little more. Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Dave has been doing some fundraising to help Raya for the memorial. We thought we'd invite him in so that he can share that with our viewers. And some of you might be inclined to also pitch in and help Raya raise money. So Dave, tell us about your club and what you do.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about myself first. So I'm a retired Air Force. I retired and served 20 years. I retired in 1999. I worked for a combatant command at MacDill Air Force Base for the past 28 years, active duty contractor, now a government civilian. I worked for the comptroller. That's why I was able to roll out those numbers so quickly. The club started when we were fighting the global war on terror. We started to see a lot of the guys come back to where I work. And we had a double amputee. His name is Brian Brennan. If you ever want to see a tearjerker, just Google on YouTube, Brian Brennan, Army soldier. And we started working with him in 2010. So he just wanted to get back outdoors, and we got him out there shooting again and hunting and all kinds of different things. So it just kind of started. Now we're constantly. I'm working a military couples retreat down in Key West. Last week we had women down in Key West fishing, swimming with dolphin. So we're always doing something. We do skydiving, wheelchair paddleboarding. We do hunting, a lot of hunting all over the world. Shooting competitions. So we do a lot with Gold Star families. And if you're not familiar with what that is, a Gold Star family is they've had someone killed in action or killed in training that was part of one of the military services. So that's our heart. When we're an all volunteer nonprofit, no one gets a dime. that's how we decided to set it up. So everyone who does it is doing it for the right reason. So, and we got to meet Mae. She came down and spoke at our group right before COVID hit. We brought her down to where we work, and everyone just fell in love with her. We got her to her first hockey game, and she's even been able to ride a Zamboni. The Tampa Bay Lightning absolutely love her. And then Mae reached out one time and said, I really want to raise some money, and I don't know how to do it. I have some bandanas. I don't know if I can sell them. And I said, why don't we try to raise a little bit of money for you? We've raised $2,000, which is not a lot when you're talking $14 million. But we want to try a couple projects. And I think, like Raya said, I think grassroots are going to raise some of the money. You're going to get corporate money, but how people should want to have, they can look at this monument someday and say, I donated to have that monument built, whether that's $50 or $100 or $1,000, whatever it is. So Mae has graciously offered. I don't know if the folks on the podcast knew, but Mae was able to strike the first coin for at the Philadelphia Mint for the greatest generation. Now they would not give her that coin, but she has a coin they gave her, but not the first strike coin, and we're gonna frame that up with her bandana, and we're gonna have an auction, and we'll put it out on the Honor Rosie thing. But I think a lot of people can get involved with that. What we've learned as a nonprofit, if you get a lot of people, the Army calls it a shotgun, where you just basically shoot out and the shells spread out. If you have a bunch of groups coming together, just like the Rosies, all 16 million, we're all across the United States working. My grandmother, I never knew my grandmother was a Rosie. She worked there's the coin. My grandmother, Agnes Winters, worked for New Departure and made ball bearings for different machinery and different equipment, different vehicles. So if I had never met Mae, I would have never known my grandmother Agnes was a Rosie the Riveter. So these women all pitched in and did something. And I think that's what we need to do as a group. Everyone who loves the Rosies, loves Mae, wants to see Raya, who is a modern day Rosie the Riveter, succeed. I think everyone can pitch in, and they can donate to your website directly. They can do a fundraiser and mail you a check, or companies. When you talk about billions of dollars, and I know Jeff Bezos, if he's watching this podcast, every year he gives $100 million away. I don't know if you guys knew that. This past year he gave $50 million to Eva Longoria and $50 million to my old boss, Admiral McRaven. So their money is given to them to give to nonprofits and for good causes. To me, Jeff, if you're listening, I think this is a great cause right here. And I think 14 million plus the 1.5 million for maintenance, I think that's doable. So I don't know if Elon Musk is listening to this or one of those guys that have so much. Where 14 million is chump change. We call it budget dust where we work because our budget is $14 billion every year. And if someone talks millions, we said, oh, that's budget dust. So to me, I think everyone could pitch in, do a little. We're going to do a little. And if I, in honor of Mae Krier, that's what we're raising the money for Raya. If I can raise 5,000, 6,000, 10,000, hey, you get a little bit in there. Maybe that'll cut the grass for a couple months after the project's done. But, just like Mae said, it's the old, we can do it. And I've been so inspired by Mae. Anytime you can see a 98-year-old woman climb up on a Zamboni and ride it around center ice, that's amazing. Or ride a tank, or, she's just an amazing. And she didn't have to do this. She could have just sat in Pennsylvania and just chilled out for the rest of her life. But that's not what she's done. That's not her heart. And I think we as Americans, whether they're women or men listening to this, I saw Greg on here. Greg, it was a pleasure to have you send me some of the stuff about the Mint. And but I think as men and women, I think this is something huge to get behind.
And I think what should settle with everybody is that Raya's memorial is for all the women, not just Rosie the Riveters, but my mom, she drove an ambulance because no men were here. she didn't know she was a Rosie too. I through May, I learned that my mom was part of the war effort. So it's so important that the women be acknowledged, and that's all women. What did you say? 18 million women, something like that?
That's the approximation. It's even hard to tell because, like you said, so many of the Rosie the Riveters didn't know they were considered Rosie the Riveters until,
One of the things that I started to do many years ago, I told them, I said, even though they worked in a small factory, probably in the middle of the country somewhere, they didn't realize how important a part they were making, how important that was to that plane that I was building. I said, I put the rivets in it, but had we not got the electrical systems, the engines, the motors, the tires, we couldn't have got that plane off the ground if it hadn't been for what you did. They just didn't realize that. They didn't realize how important their role was. And it woke up a lot of women when they realized that they were just as important as us riveters or welders. But, I have a little story to tell. I love to tell about how small when you build, like I said, by building your treehouse. When we were kids, it was during the Great Depression, and they were building Mount Rushmore. Well, our school took up a collection. They used to ask the schools or different places to help support it. And I can remember I probably gave a nickel or a penny. I don't remember just how much. I know it wasn't much. We didn't have anything. But the first time I seen Mount Rushmore, I looked at it and I said, I helped build that. And, that's what they're going to do when they see your monument. When they go to Washington, they're going to say, I helped build that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Dave,
and Dave.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dave.
No, you
I
go
said,
ahead.
I asked you how long I'd known you. I said around 5 years. Isn't that right? I forget just how long ago we met.
I think 2019 we met.
Is that when it was? I didn't remember.
I think it was 5 years ago.
And it's been great. You are outstanding when it comes. And with Dave, one of the things I think is so outstanding, the way you honor the women as well as the men. And I think that's so outstanding. Because you don't get this from a World War II veterans. They still think we belong in the kitchen, I think. But,
Yeah, well.
I think America realizes what you've done. As we reflect on the 70th, and I know you went to the 75th anniversary of D-Day, and
right.
When I saw you at the 80th, I know Ray was there also, but when I saw you in the sea of men back there, standing, sitting proudly because they wouldn't let you stand. There we go.
That's us. Well, the best defense didn't realize that I knew Raya from when she was young, and we spent quite a bit of time together.
We were in trouble.
Think when people
they
looked
kept
up
separating us.
People realized that what a role all the women played in World War II. And like I saw Greg make a text out there, we would probably be speaking German right now if the women did step up and built the aircrafts, the ships, everything.
But one of the nice things during the Normandy affair, right after the ceremony was over, we were still all up on the stage. Our congressman, Brian Fitzpatrick, came up on the stage and he brought me a duplicate of the medal that went into the Smithsonian. It was a large one, the one we got that night there. And I thought that was so nice. He honored me so. And since then, he's had a special affair for all the Rosies that I knew, even some that I didn't know, then passed on before we ever got to know them. He honored their families. And it was the nicest thing. There was a lot of tears shed because they thought their mothers or grandmothers were forgotten. And when they found out that they were honored too, they were just so happy.
Well, that's what they said. I met a Medal of Honor recipient's mother one time. And she said, the only thing worse than dying is being forgotten. And so we cannot forget the women that did this. So, Dave, thank you so much for what you're doing with May. She loves coming back to you, always.
One other thing, Deb. Raya, you're honoring the men with your thing too. You've got not just the women you're honoring, right? You've got men on there too, haven't you?
No, women.
On your women? Just all women, is it?
Yeah, the men have their memorial.
The men have plenty of spots up there, May.
Yep.
What's that? What was that, Dave?
The men have plenty of spots up there. I've been
That's
up there.
right.
I'm like, where are the women? But you pointed out
But
they
you
have
know,
that one little plaque up there that mentions the women.
Yep.
And you know, Dave, it's a nice that like you men like you yourself, how well you help us to get to where we're going. If you didn't help us, we couldn't do these things. And I think back, even on the trip in Normandy, several of those men asked me, would I talk to their daughters because they thought that, you know, women talking to their daughters, they can make them realize what they're capable of. But, you know, I want to really honor these men because they're fathers who want to see their daughters succeed. In our day, usually if all the men wanted was a son, I felt the daughter wasn't worth much back in those days because I guess they couldn't work the farm probably or something like that. But now I love the way the young fathers are honoring their daughters and making sure they're just as qualified or just as capable as their sons. I think that's nice.
May I close with this? Well, when I saw the picture of our commanding general on his knees honoring you at the 80th anniversary, I was like, oh my, that is the respect that you guys deserve. And when General Fenton is a wonderful man, but when he was kneeling down, yeah, I know but he didn't just shake your hand and stand up. He knelt down because you were in a wheelchair. I know they wouldn't let you get out of the wheelchair, even though you could.
You could.
He knelt down just so he was eye level with you to show his respect for you.
Oh, well, that was very nice.
He commands over 70,000 special operators.
Wow. And he's such a handsome man, too, and that don't hurt.
I'm going to go to his house on January 11th. I'll tell him that.
You tell him that. Listen, thank you, Dave and Raya. Thank you so much for being a part of our show. And Raya, we're going to now talk about next steps of what we're going to do. So thank you both. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for Brian, Dave. This has been great.
So what we want to do with Honor Rosie, the first thing we need to do is we will work with Raya to ask our followers to help get sponsors in Congress for Raya's bill for the location of the memorial. And our plan is to do what we did for the Congressional Gold Medal. And so we have, 6,000 followers. And last time when we asked, you did a great job in contacting your congressman and a woman and senator. And when that time comes up that the legislation gets introduced again next year, we will put that information out there, and we ask that you help us get her legislation passed, get the right amount of sponsors, because she has to have so many sponsors for it to become a law. And the second, another thing we want to ask is, if you're a teacher, consider doing a fundraiser with your class to help build this memorial. $14 million is a lot of money, but it certainly is a worthwhile cause. If you own a company, we ask you consider being a partner to Raya. If you'd like to donate, you can go to the website that's scrolling underneath here. If you want to, Mae, talk to us about your idea about your bandanas.
Well, first of all, one of the things you mentioned was the teachers. You would be surprised how many teachers have asked me, or I'll do Zooms, but the students will ask me. And they love the bandanas that I make. They like them if I sign them, but they like them. But the teacher uses that. Sometimes they frame them, sometimes they just hang them in their classroom. But they make the young girls realize what they're capable of. And that makes me proud. And I'm sure it's wonderful to make the girls realize that they can do what they want to do in their life too. But no, I've made a lot of bandanas. Now I have a lot of them on hand. What I would like to do is I'd like some company or some group, it can be anybody, if they just take them. I don't want you to take less than a couple dozen or so. If you just sell them for Raya's fund, all you've got to do is just sell them and send her that money to her fund. I'm taking care of all the work and the material and everything like that. That's all you have to do is sell them. So I'd love to have some organizations or somebody who would like to do that. because, like we said, her program's going to cost a lot of money, and every little bit is going to help, especially now, just to get it off the ground. And I think it's so important, like Deb and I will work very hard for her, like we did to help get the Congressional Gold Medal. We couldn't have got that. It didn't take a lot of work. And so we've got other ideas too, and Deb, you follow through, Deb.
Oh, yeah. Well, May obviously can't stay away from the sewing machine because she loves to make bandanas now.
Or the lawnmower.
And the lawnmower, correct. If you would like to do this, get in touch with us. I'm going to give you our email address is honorrosie, HONORROSIE 2020 @gmail.com. It's also in our introduction to this podcast. So get in touch with us, and here's hoping 2025 is going to be a really great year for Raya and for the memorial and for all women. Do you have any parting thoughts, May, as we leave this year and go to the next?
Show your shirt, Deb. Can you show a little part of your shirt?
You're going to make me.
Okay.
All right.
This
Here we
came
go.
from there. Beautiful. This came from Heather from Illinois. She sent me 2 dozen of them, and she's just wonderful with me. She sponsored some of my things. But when people ask me for them, I ask them to it's up to you. I said what you want to pay for them, but send the donation to Raya's fund. And I still have a few left. Not too many, but a few, because they really hit. So if anybody's interested, get in contact with the number that Deb gave you.
Yeah. Email us at honorrosie2020 @gmail.com. And I think that's good. It's been a great year, May. Thank you for letting me to be a part of it.
Well, not part of it. I couldn't have done it without you, Deb. You know that. It takes all of us to do these things. One person can't do it alone.
Well,
and that's nice that we get people to join us. I know David's going to get different people to join too. And word of mouth is wonderful, because they realize once they hear what you're doing and what you're talking about, they love the story of her, a young girl in the 5th grade. Imagine that, what she's built that into. And now she's a graduate. She's a college graduate now. Unbelievable. And she's a sweetheart.
She's amazing.
She's our shining
star.
She said, I like what she said down in Washington. I'm not sure I'm wording it right, but she said she wants to do for us what we did for them. When, she wants to do for us, Rosie, what we did for the women today. And I thought that's so nice.
That is wonderful. All right. So, it's been a great year. We thank Brandy for all her help with these podcasts. We look forward to bringing more in 2025. I guess it's time to power up, May. You ready to power up?
Think so. Are we ready?
Power up.
We can do it.
We can do it. Thanks,
That's
everyone.
Right.
Merry Christmas. Yep. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Remember to be kind to one another, and we'll see you next year. Thank you.
And thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Deb.